The town was in shock. Neighbors had unknowingly eaten noodles made with human flesh. A horrifying investigation was about to unfold. Picture living in a small, quiet American town. Every evening, locals gathered for a steaming bowl of noodles, comforted by the smell that drifted through the streets. No one ever questioned it. But who could have imagined that behind the mouth-watering aroma lay the most chilling secret? The meat inside those bowls wasn't ordinary at all. It was human. The discovery shook the entire community, forcing police to step in and leaving deep scars on those who never thought they'd become victims of such a gruesome deception. What followed was an investigation that exposed a crime so dark that greed and cruelty seemed to smother every shred of humanity. Stay with us because every detail of this story will chill your spine. And before we dive in, don't forget to subscribe, turn on notifications, and like this video so you won't miss other shocking true stories we uncover. Your support means everything as we continue sharing these mysterious, dramatic tales with hidden lessons. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Your voice helps shape this channel's journey. Now, in a quiet corner of Riverside, Ohio, there's a narrow lane called Maple Court. To outsiders, it looks unremarkable. The cracked asphalt barely fits two cars passing side by side. Paint peels from the siding of old houses. Power lines droop overhead like tangled webs. When rain comes, drops fall steadily from rusted tin awnings, ticking like a clock. It's as if time in Maple Court moves in slow repetition. But hidden in this plain street is a food stall that commands attention. Folks call it Mrs. Louise's Diner. Every morning, the 62-year-old woman lights charcoal in her weathered stove. The flames glow bright, smoke rising thick with the scent of sizzling meat that makes anyone nearby stop in their tracks. The smell clings irresistible. Market workers swear their day doesn't start until they've stopped at her stand. Though the place itself looks humble, its faded green wooden door gets wiped clean daily despite the years. A sun-bleached tarp stretches overhead as a makeshift roof. 3 plastic tables, chipped but sturdy, are surrounded by small stools. On them, bottles of soy sauce and hot chili paste are neatly lined. In the corner sits a red brick stove, always burning. Above it, a blackened grill shines from constant use. Beside it, a pot of thick broth simmers endlessly. Strangers often wonder how such a small stall stays packed every day. Oddly enough, no one has ever seen Mrs. Louise buying meat at the market, yet her grill never empties. It's an old family recipe, she'd say with a smile. Best not to ask too much. Most left it at that, preferring to believe the legend rather than pry. Another thing that stood out was the spotless space. Rain could pour, but her floor was always dry. No spills, no stains, no garbage piles. Even flies, the constant companions of grilled food, rarely buzzed there. Neighbors would say, "She's just meticulous. No wonder the place feels so clean." But some whispered it was too clean. Too perfect. Almost unnaturally so. For locals, her diner wasn't just a food stop, it was like a clock tower. When smoke curled at 6 a.m., workers knew it was time to head out. When broth lids lifted at 6:10, school kids hurried past Maple Court. Her stand became a signal for life's rhythm. Yet behind the familiar comfort was something uneasy. The smoke didn't just smell good, it left a sweet aftertaste clinging to the throat, making people thirstier the more they inhaled. Visitors thought it was simply her spice blend, but townsfolk began calling it her signature touch. They accepted it, never realizing that was exactly where the truth was buried. Life on Maple Court moved predictably, traders rolling carts, mothers shopping, children racing to school. The days felt scripted, looping endlessly. And in such a pattern, strangeness could easily hide. People didn't notice when a chair went unfilled, or when a child's laughter suddenly went missing. They assumed he was playing elsewhere. Until one day, when a boy named Ethan vanished after stopping at Mrs. Louise's Diner. That's when the townspeople realized their normal was masking something terrifying. That morning, November 12, 2023, the skies over Riverside were heavy and gray. The air reeked of wet leaves and mud from the nearby river. Each step in Maple Court left a damp print on the asphalt. The nightmare unfolded quickly. Ethan never came home. His grandmother searched frantically, calling his name through the rain. Behind Mrs. Louise's Diner, a neighbor found a suspicious black trash bag. Whispers spread. Police were called. When investigators entered the kitchen, the truth came to light. Plastic bags stuffed with rotting remains, the metallic stench impossible to ignore. Forensics later confirmed the unimaginable: human flesh. The stall that once signaled the heartbeat of Maple Court became the epicenter of horror. Mrs. Louise sat in silence, her face unreadable, while officers sealed off the evidence. The town that once gathered around her table now locked their doors in fear, left to live with a wound no meal could ever heal. He didn't glance at what the officer was handling. His stare was blank, fixed on the mist outside the window, as though he were searching for something hidden in the damp air. At times, his eyes shifted toward the steady flow of Maple Creek, then dulled again. When an officer approached with a question, he only nodded. His lips never moved. Detective Harris stood for a long time in front of the cooler box before turning to survey the small room. The shelves of plates and bowls were lined with surgical precision. Forks and spoons aligned edge to edge. No grease stains, no scratches. Even the old clock on the wall ticked so faintly it felt as though time itself had paused. "Everything here looks like a stage," he murmured, "but far too perfect for a diner kitchen." By late morning the inspection wrapped up. Evidence was packed into the cruiser, and a police seal was slapped across the faded wooden door. That single red sticker made neighbors keep their distance. Crowds gathered at the end of Maple Court, faces pale with unease. A middle-aged woman stepped forward. Her voice cracked. "Officer, what about our kids?" Captain Parker studied her for a moment, then answered in a low tone, "Don't let them be alone for now. We'll get to the bottom of this." The short reply carried a chill through the crowd. Parents clutched children tighter. Others hurried toward the chapel. Some whispered faint prayers. As the police car rolled away from Maple Court, carrying the cooler box and soup pot as evidence, residents stood frozen. Eyes empty, heads bowed, some grasped hands for comfort. The sound of the engine faded, leaving a silence heavier than the mist. That night, Maple Court felt stripped bare. No smoke rising, no glow from the small diner windows. Only the sound of Maple Creek drifting through the dark, carrying a coldness into every home. Where once hunger was soothed by the smell of grilled meat, unease now gnawed at every stomach. And as he sat in his chair, Detective Harris knew one truth. This investigation had only begun, and the secrets behind Mrs. Louise's calm expression would take far more digging to uncover. At the Riverside Police Station, a medium-sized interrogation room was prepared. The paint was dull gray, peeling in spots. A buzzing fluorescent bulb dangled overhead, throwing cold white light across a wooden table that separated investigator from suspect. A metal chair scraped against the floor as Mrs. Louise was asked to sit. She entered slowly, sitting tall without instruction. Her hands folded neatly in her lap, her lips pressed tight. She looked anything but nervous. If anything, her calmness seeped through the room like fog creeping into corners. Two officers flanked the wall, one flipping open a notebook, the other pressing a recorder's red button. Detective Harris opened a brown folder, studied her face, then spoke firmly, "Ma'am, can you walk us through what you did the morning of November 12th, the day Ethan was last seen at your diner?" Mrs. Louise never broke eye contact. Her reply was slow, deliberate, as though every word was filtered before leaving her lips. "He brought a bowl. I filled it with grilled rice cakes and vegetables. He wanted extra basil. I gave it to him. Then he left." The room fell quiet. Only the pen-scratching paper disturbed the air. Harris leaned forward. "Are you certain he left right after that?" Louise tilted her head slightly. "I saw him step outside. After that, I was busy in the kitchen. I don't know where he went." Harris's gaze sharpened. "But his grandmother said Ethan never came home. Neighbors say no one saw him past Maple Court. Are you sure nothing unusual happened?" For a moment, Louise's eyes drifted to the wall, then back. A faint smile touched her lips. "That alley is always crowded. Memory plays tricks. Anyone could be mistaken." Harris slid out a photo of the red police seal in the cooler box. "Do you recognize this?" Louise glanced at it, replying flatly, "That's my meat cooler." "Where do you usually buy your meat?" Harris pressed. "From the delivery man at dawn. I don't ask questions. I just need enough stock." The two officers exchanged wary glances. Harris jotted a note, then looked back up. "Residents say you never shop at the market, yet your stall never runs out of meat. Doesn't that seem unusual?" Louise dipped her head briefly, then lifted her eyes, calm as ever. "Everyone has their ways of living. Not everything needs explaining." The air in the room grew heavier. The officer with the notebook stopped writing, waiting. Harris leaned in closer. "Several neighbors heard metal dragging from your diner at dawn. Others saw the back door open, then slam shut. How do you explain that?" Louise inhaled slowly. "It's an old building. Doors creak. Pots scrape. Nothing unusual." Her tone was flat, unconvincing yet difficult to challenge. Harris's voice grew harder. "And the broth, the sweet metallic odor. That's not from herbs. Louise's faint smile slipped. Her fingers clenched on her lap, but her voice stayed measured. It's a family recipe. People love it. They keep coming back. If someone finds it strange, maybe their taste is different. Harris leaned back. We've already found what's inside that cooler. Do you want to explain before the lab confirms it? Louise looked at the table, then the humming light above. Its reflection gleamed in her eyes like a veil. After a pause, she answered, If you've seen it, why should I say anything? The truth doesn't always come from my lips, it's in what you uncover. The room froze. The officers exchanged tense glances. Harris pressed his hands together, realizing this was no confession but a challenge. Outside, witnesses waited. Sarah Miller, a market cleaner, trembling with memory of the black bag. George Lewis, the locksmith neighbor, fingers tapping a wrench. And Grandma May, Ethan's guardian, clutching his little green bowl. One by one they would piece together the puzzle. That night, the first interrogation ended. Louise was escorted to holding. She walked slowly, unshaken. Before the iron door shut, she glanced at the corridor's small window. The starless sky reflected in her eyes, and a faint smile crept across her face, as if she carried a secret only she understood. Harris, closing his folder, muttered, This woman isn't simple. She's been waiting for this moment. In the waiting room, wooden benches groaned as people shifted. A fan rattled overhead, mixing stale coffee with cigarette smoke from outside. Everyone knew their testimony could change everything. The first called in was Sarah Miller, 35, her hands rough from years of market work. She sat stiff, clutching the edge of her scarf. What did you see the morning Ethan vanished? Harris asked. Sarah swallowed. Around 6, I pushed my trash cart past the back of Louise's diner. Usually I keep moving, but that day the smell was different. Not food. Not garbage either. It was sharp, like burning metal mixed with wet smoke. She lowered her voice. I peeked through the fence. A black bag leaned against the wall, liquid dripping out. I panicked and left. Later I heard Ethan disappeared. Since then I can't sleep. Harris pressed gently. Ever see anything like that before? Sarah shook her head. No. But 2 years ago my brother vanished at 12. He'd gone for breakfast and never came back. Since then that stall has haunted me. Tears rolled down her cheeks. Thank you, Harris said quietly. Next came George Lewis, 57, the locksmith across the street. Tall, wiry, eyes sharp. He sat casually, but his wrench tapped nervously against his hand. You sit outside often. What did you see? Harris asked. George exhaled smoke from his last cigarette. I saw Ethan. He waved at me before going in. But I never saw him come back out. I had a clear view of that door. If he left, I'd have seen it. Only adults went in and out. Any noises? Harris asked. About 6:30, I heard metal dragging like a heavy box sliding. Thought nothing of it then. Ever notice anything odd about the diner? George hesitated, then spoke low. Once, I fixed her hinge. Inside, everything was lined up. Plates, nails on the wall, even. Too neat. Like a showroom, not a kitchen. I always felt something was wrong, but I stayed quiet. I shouldn't have. Last was Grandma May, frail with her cane, clutching Ethan's green bowl. Harris helped her sit. His tone softened. Ma'am, please, we need your memory. Her voice cracked. That morning I gave him coins. He smiled, ran off singing. I waited, but he never came back. I went to the diner, smoke still rising, called his name. No answer. My heart knew something was wrong. Tears streamed as she gripped the bowl. Harris bowed his head. We'll do everything we can. The 3 testimonies, the stench, the dragging sound, the vanished boy, all pointed back to Louise's diner. Yet the full truth remained buried. That night, Harris pinned photos to a board. The cooler, the pot, the alley, the witnesses. Red strings connected names and evidence. He muttered, everyone holds a piece. Together, the pattern will show. Outside, streetlights buzzed over Riverside. The silence of Maple Court felt darker than ever. All day, Harris worked in a monitor room with tangled wires and buzzing screens. A young technician replayed grainy market cameras. Footage was blurred, clocks unsynced, but truth often slipped through flaws. Start with the north gate at 5 a.m., Harris instructed. Fast-forwarded images flickered. Vendors unloading, crates sliding. Then a green pickup creeping past. Stop. Rewind. Zoom. The screen pixelated, but the truck's edge was clear. A faded triangle sticker. Scratched paint. Mark that, Harris muttered. Another camera showed the truck again, its dented rear visible. Harris ordered checks on local garages. Then footage from a grocery shop appeared, a faint reflection of a veiled figure pushing a white cooler box with peeling tape. "That's the same box," Harris growled. A month-old vlog showed the diner interior reflected on a table, drag marks leading to the back door. "Save that." A report arrived, a silver pickup delivering meat at dawn, registered under Henry Givens, a butcher from nearby Kalapuru. Red dirt roads, secluded. Perfect for hiding. License plate partially red 73. Not many trucks matched, dented rear, sticker, scratches. Harris called for a full search. Red lines on the board now linked. Louise Box Truck Givens Kalapuru. One repair shop had recently fixed a dented truck door, for Givens. And last, grainy footage showed Ethan's faint outline near the market before vanishing behind a woman's silhouette, her gait eerily matching Louise's. Side by side the steps aligned. Not proof but enough to raise alarm. A call came in. Traffic officers had narrowed it to 3 possible trucks ending in 73. One of them belonged to. Detective Harris jotted in his notebook. If Henry Givens is the outer chain, then Mrs. Louise is the inner lock. Break one, the whole chain falls apart. He studied the evidence board covered with old photographs, then rose from his chair. In Riverside, Ohio, rumors spread like wildfire. Some swore they had spotted the silver truck idling near the cane fields at dawn. Others whispered about the sound of a truck bed closing when the morning was still dark. Down the alley, Sarah Miller walked faster than usual, her nerves unsettled. As if pulled by memory, George Lewis shut off his lamp earlier than normal and stood silently at his window, staring out. Grandma May whispered long prayers, her hands gently tracing the edge of Ethan's small green bowl. Close to midnight, the lab report came in. The first analysis of the broth sample revealed traces that matched DNA from another missing boy who vanished in 2022 from a nearby county. Harris closed his eyes, realizing the puzzle was widening. He typed a short message to his team, 2 groups. One sets surveillance on Kalapuru. The other pulls all old camera footage. Look for patterns. Connect the dots. We'll push from both ends. Though dawn was still far off, the machinery of the investigation spun faster. Outside, the rain drummed its usual rhythm, but tonight the sound carried a sharper edge. The realization grew. The dull hum of that open-bed truck wasn't just another vehicle passing through, it was the pulse of a hidden operation, long buried under routine and silence. And when daylight broke, the dirt road toward Kalapuru would receive tires without sirens, inching the truth closer with each turn. Before sunrise, a small police unit drove carefully down the slick red clay road. Thin mist hovered above fields of sugarcane, tightly pressed on either side. Tires splashed through shallow puddles, the engine held low to preserve the village's quiet. In the front seat, Harris stared into the fog, jaw set. His thoughts flicked to the evidence fragments pinned on the board the night before. In the back, 2 officers handled long-lens cameras and binoculars, ready for watch. "No rushing," Harris whispered. "We only observe. Note who comes, who goes, what they carry." They parked behind a cluster of trees about 100 yards from a rusted corrugated iron building behind a sagging wire fence. From afar, a faded wooden sign barely read Givens Warehouse. The place looked abandoned, except for the thin plume of smoke slipping from a rear chimney. "There's activity," one officer muttered. They fixed the camera on a tripod and focused on the gate. At 5:20, the sputter of an old motor cut through the mist. A dented silver truck crept in through the gate. From the driver's side, a tall, broad man stepped down, shabby jacket on, cigarette already between his lips. "That's Henry Givens," Harris whispered. From the bed, Givens dragged out 2 large dark bundles wrapped in plastic, leaving wet streaks across the ground as he hauled them inside. The corrugated door screeched open, echoing into the cane fields. The camera zoomed in. His palms were rough, lined with scars, his nails black with grime. He disappeared inside, leaving only the hum of a generator. Half an hour later he re-emerged, this time wheeling out a large cooler chipped at the corner, its wheels squealing. He heaved it into the truck bed. From inside came a faint metallic clang before silence returned. The team noted the time, 5 a.m. sharp. Harris's mind raced. If that cooler traveled from Givens' warehouse to Louise's stall, then the route was clear. But what was inside? At 6 o'clock, an elderly woman appeared on a side path, basket in hand. She paused at the gate, exchanged a few words with Givens, and slipped him a thin brown envelope. He patted her shoulder before heading back inside. "There's a network," Harris murmured. "He's not working alone." The mist began to thin. First light caught the rusted roof, glowing like old blood. On one wall, dark stains streaked down the metal siding, as though something once seeped out and dried. "Photograph that," one officer whispered. Harris nodded. "No assumptions. We test everything." The morning grew busier, motorbikes of farmers buzzing past, children walking toward school. One officer stirred, tempted to move closer, but Harris lifted his hand. "Not yet. We leave before suspicion rises." They packed the gear and drove back toward the main road, silence heavy in the car. Through the window, sugarcane blurred by. "Kalapuru isn't just a hideout," Harris finally said. "This is bigger. And Louise isn't just buying meat. They're shielding each other." Back at headquarters, the team logged photos, recordings, and times. A fresh red string stretched across the board. Kalapuru Givens' warehouse, cooler, Louise's stall. The web was tightening, and growing more dangerous. That afternoon, traffic police delivered a report. Givens' truck had crossed checkpoints multiple times, always at dawn, always tarped. The most alarming log, November 12, 7:15 a.m., the very morning Ethan vanished. Harris tapped the board near Givens' name. "If we pull him in, Louise loses her shield. The question is, how without spooking him?" Evening fell. The skies above Riverside darkened. Outside the station, market chatter softened into anxious whispers. Children were kept indoors. Footsteps of adults hit heavier on the empty street. Silence, once comforting, now pressed like fear on every corner. Harris scribbled in his notebook. Next step, bait Givens with a false delivery. Follow the route. Crack the warehouse. True, the chain breaks from outside to inside. Closing the book, he eyed his team. "Tomorrow we move." At dawn, dew still clung to the ground as the unit gathered in the briefing room. Harris stood at the whiteboard, marker in hand. The red line between Givens and Louise now bore a new circle. Bait operation. "We can't wait for evidence to drop," he said firmly. "We push Givens out of hiding." The plan? Officers posing as traders offering meat to Kalapuru. A risky move, but their best shot. A young officer, Raka, would play the driver, his face still unknown in the area. A van was disguised with tarps and crates, empty but convincing. Harris would ride passenger, dressed as a plain out-of-town trader. Before leaving, he reminded them, "This is recon only. No arrests. Evidence first." The van rolled carefully along the muddy road, sugarcane tight on both sides. Raka's palms sweated on the wheel. "Detective, what if they suspect?" he asked. Harris patted his shoulder. "Stay calm. Men like Givens see shady cargo all the time. Act confident and they won't question." As the corrugated gate appeared, a tattooed guard raised his hand. Raka rolled the window down with a polite nod. "Delivery for Mr. Givens. Fresh stock from a new supplier." The guard's eyes narrowed, scanning the van. He lifted the tarp, only saw the crate, and after a pause waved them through. The gate screeched open. Inside, the yard was bleak, muddy ground, rusted drums piled, dark bundles waiting by the wall. From the warehouse door, Givens appeared. Cigarette in mouth, eyes sharp. "Who are you?" His voice was gravel. Raka steadied himself. "New supplier, sir. Heard Mrs. Louise's stall buys from you. Brought a sample." He patted the crate. Givens circled the van slowly, mud splashing under his boots, hands brushing the tarp. His stare cut deep. "Why only now? I don't trust strangers." Harris dipped his head, playing the old trader. "Just looking to build steady trade. If it doesn't suit, we'll leave." Silence, then a short, harsh laugh. "You've got guts. Unload one crate." "Let me see." Raka swallowed hard, lifting the hollow crate. Givens kicked it, heard the empty thud, but showed no suspicion. "Bring it inside." Harris signaled Raka and they followed him in. The corrugated door groaned shut behind them. Inside, damp air stank of rust. A flickering lamp buzzed above. Along the wall sat several coolers, corners cracked, wheels worn. Drag marks scarred the concrete floor. Harris's pulse pounded. Every piece of evidence was here. But he couldn't act yet. One wrong move and the trail would vanish. Givens' gaze was cold. "If you want a deal, you follow my rules. No questions. No records. Just supply when I say." Harris tilted his head. "Do these shipments go only to Mrs. Louise, or others as well?" Givens froze, eyes narrowing. "Why ask that? A real trader cares about money, not buyers." The room stiffened. Sweat rolled down Raka's back. Raka quickly added, "We can adjust the price, sir. Regular, cheap, reliable." Givens stared long, then flicked his cigarette to the floor. "Tomorrow at dawn, Deliver one load to Louise. If smooth, we continue. Harris's chest tightened. Givens had opened the door himself. They exited slowly. Only when the van was past the gate did Rocca exhale. Detective, I thought we were finished. Harris allowed a faint smile. Sometimes a little tension makes men like him feel powerful. That's when they slip. The van rolled on, morning sun striking the sugarcane. Birds sang, engines droned in the distance. But Harris's thoughts stayed sharp. Tomorrow's dawn would reveal the chain between Givens and Louise. It had to be exposed before they buried it deeper. At dawn, the bait delivery reached Louise's stall. Inside, Harris spotted the same chipped coolers and an old notebook filled with coded entries. Hidden cameras caught everything. As they slipped out the side door, Rocca whispered about the sour metallic smell, not fresh meat. Harris reassured him. That night at headquarters, the footage played across the screen, the chilling link between Henry Givens' warehouse and Mrs. Louise's spotless kitchen. From a distance, the hum of Riverside's morning market carried on. Vendors shouting, shoes scraping against pavement, the calls of early customers. But for Detective Harris, those sounds faded into nothing. His mind held only one truth. The chain between Henry Givens and Mrs. Louise was nearly broken. That night, inside the district office, his team gathered. A projector lit up the wall as the footage from the bait operation played. On screen appeared the back room of Mrs. Louise's stall. A dented cooler, stains on the floor, and a small notebook sitting plainly on the table. One officer zoomed in, revealing code scribbled on its pages. Look here, said Rocca, pointing. On one line it read RK10. Could be Raffi, age 10. The room froze in silence, every face drawn tight with dread. Harris shut his eyes briefly, then spoke, voice low but steady. If that's true, it's not just notes, it's a list of victims. We can't wait. At sunrise, we file for an official search warrant. Around the table, the team lowered their heads. The weight of it pressed on all of them. Whatever hid behind Louise's spotless kitchen was far more sinister than contraband meat. The meeting ended with Harris's firm resolve. Tomorrow we expose everything. Nothing stays buried. November 14, 2023. 3 police trucks and 2 sedans pulled into the mouth of 5th Street Alley. Usually alive with produce stands and morning chatter, the road was eerily hushed. Curious residents clustered in doorways, watching from a safe distance. Some were still in nightclothes, rubbing sleep from their eyes. Others tugged children indoors, bolting doors behind them. Harris stepped out of the lead vehicle, uniform crisp, expression hard. In his hand he gripped the search warrant, signed, stamped, and final. He inhaled once, steadying himself, then raised his hand. We move in. Stick to procedure. The forensic team advanced first, lugging bags of gloves, evidence kits, and cameras. Behind them, armed officers secured the alley, scanning every doorway, every shadow, weapons ready. Mrs. Louise's stall appeared deceptively ordinary. A thin ribbon of smoke curled from the stove chimney. The air carried the aroma of vegetable broth over damp charcoal. The bamboo curtain at the doorway swayed lazily. On a bench out front sat Mrs. Louise, knitting calmly as though she had been expecting them all along. Harris stepped forward, opened his folder, and read aloud the warrant. Mrs. Louise, by order of the court and findings from our investigation, we are authorized to search this stall. Her needles stopped clicking. She lifted her gaze, brows arched faintly, eyes sharp with defiance. Go ahead, she replied coolly. I've nothing to hide. The onlookers shivered at her composure. There was no panic, no resistance, only her unsettling calm. The team got to work. 2 officers swept the kitchen, opening cupboards, pulling open drawers. Forensics snapped photos of every detail. The front stall was searched too, register checked, spice racks moved, shelves emptied. Everything was spotless. Too spotless. Then the door to the back room creaked open. A foul mixture of rust, rot, and rancid oil hit their noses. A flickering light buzzed overhead, dimly revealing a large, dull cooler in the corner. Its tiny wheels left fresh tracks across the floor. Harris nodded. Open it. 2 officers pulled on gloves, peeling away the sealing tape. The lid cracked open, releasing a rush of cold air laced with something darker. No one spoke. Their eyes locked in silent horror. The cooler did not hold meat. It contained several small bundles wrapped tightly in wet cloth. Drops of dark liquid trickled down to the box's bottom. One officer quickly shut the lid, signaling for evidence containers. Each bundle was photographed, labeled, and sealed. On the table, the notebook lay exactly where the video had shown it. Harris picked it up, careful with his gloves, and turned through its pages. Every sheet bore abbreviated names, ages, and dates. "This isn't one case," Harris said grimly. "It's dozens." A young officer's voice cracked. "Sir, entry NR July 12, 2022. Could be Niren." The room turned heavy with silence. Faces of missing children from Riverside and neighboring towns seemed to fill the air. Harris snapped the book shut and fixed his stare on Louise. "Madam, do you still say there's nothing hidden here?" She met his eyes without flinching. "All you see are numbers. Numbers can mean anything." Her tone was calm, almost taunting. At that moment, the rumble of an engine broke outside. A guard burst in breathless. "Detective," a silver pickup just tore down the back road, heading toward the cane fields. Villagers confirmed with frightened nods. They'd seen it speed by. "Go," Harris barked. "One unit pursue the truck. Don't lose it." Engines roared as officers on trail bikes shot off down the dirt lanes. Villagers scattered, shouting as the chase thundered past. Back in the stall, Louise simply resumed knitting, her face unreadable as though nothing at all were happening. Harris glared at her. "This ends now. We already have proof." She set her needles down, lips curling faintly. "Proof means nothing unless you can connect it. And connections take time. Do you have that luxury?" Her words chilled the room, hinting at something far larger still hidden. The team exchanged uneasy glances. Static burst over the police radio, then a strained voice broke through. "Silver pickup, heading for Highway 16. Driver confirmed, Henry Givens. Speeding hard." Harris's fist clenched. The raid had only cracked the surface. This small stall was no simple eatery, it was a hub in a chain that stretched further than they feared. And now, with Henry Givens fleeing, a new hunt had begun.